Welcome back to Podcast a Hero. This episode is brought to you by Cornbot. You can't spell Pondcast the Herbo without Cornbot. This episode is also brought to you by our patrons. And I'm now going to read the Patreon list, which I apologize, but it's going to take us about 45 minutes. Mitch, Aaron MFJ, Viva Hate, I am Dimitri, and the world is my sack. Maddie G, Ali, Benjamin, Taylor, Dave the film guy, Jake, Bob, Josh, in Steven Exposure, Progtoff. We were offended. Oh, sorry. We were offered a sponsorship by My Pillow, but they don't support enough fascists for our taste. Julia, the fat brown kid, Foolish Bale. We're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I. A full commitment's what I'm thinking of, and you wouldn't get this.
That is a very long username.
Yeah. Brett Boss Blackwood, Yes I Be a Newfoundlander by Spitgoth, Yo, absolutely the best podcast, a work in progress, Roadies, Road Raging, Rodent, Sebastodon. This is a pro-smoking cigarettes podcast. I Swallow Cum, Source the Odd is a result of a spray fart, come to New Brunswick, Rob, Peggy Thrill, Adam Foot, Fritzy's Feet, really makes you think. 23 Hamsters, Fire Fee, a common thread. I made Fritzy kiss Rhodey in my lucid dreams. Zane, Rhodey loves my dink. On a positive note, I'm organizing my workplace. Deconomus, I was told there would be veggie cheeseless pizzas. Zach, the final Dan, Cage Panda, Zach, Cornman, Mason Bailey, Terrabilly Jean, Yuri, Fruit, Ashwin, and High Tops.
So that one that was really long was the lyrics to Rick Astley. Never gonna.
Is it?
Up. You know.
Oh, we got Rickrolled.
So do I. Yeah.
Oh, we got Rickrolled. Nice. Mm-hmm. Thanks to whoever just Rickrolled us. Before I introduce our guest, Rhodey, is it true that based on a podcast episode we did recently, that included a tour of the Hockey Hall of Fame, that you were invited to a special Hockey Hall of Fame event?
I'm not super sure it had anything to do with the podcast, but
it did.
Yeah, I was invited. I got a direct message on Instagram from the Hockey Hall of Fame, which was pretty cool.
So, you weren't in that episode, I don't think. Maybe very briefly at the end. Yeah. The Hockey Hall of Fame didn't reach out to me.
No, they did not.
That's not cool. Our guest this week is somebody that goes back to my ancient past. The world is incredibly small. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine to a recent episode with Josh Scogin of 68. So yeah. I knew the guitar player from Nora when I was a little kid, like in high school.
And you still thought we were the same band?
He was in a band called Backside Disaster. His name's Matt. Hey.
Backside Disaster.
They were in a band called Backside Disaster in high school. And there's a bunch of my friends were in that band.
So yeah, that dude's name's Portland, or at least that's what I call him.
Yeah, from Portland. That's where I'm from.
So he does all of our artwork.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you're like literally pulling out all the great stuff, which is setting your standards. You're setting your standards real high for the next few questions because they've got to land just as hard. Yeah, so he does all the artwork for everything 68, and I think the last couple things, the Chariot, he pieced it together and did stuff too. So yeah, he's I'm
pretty confident that he did the cover of Fortress.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Why would you not know that?
I met him in Atlanta. He had a fucking huge tablet with him, and he was like, "Hi, I'm Portland," and I was like, "Hi," and he's like, "I drew the cover of your record." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Matt, hey, thank you for joining us today. You want us to call you Matt? We won't call you P-Town.
You can call me whatever. It's fine.
Okay, Jody. So this is an incredibly small world. I made a silly joke with Josh, who then told us about our relationship, his relationship with you and Carl. And then Rhodey said he also knew you from work that you did with PTH, and I had to get you on the show. So here you are. The first question is, what are you doing today? What have you been doing for the last 25 years?
It's funny. It's like I haven't seen that mural that's behind you. Is that's something we did for you? It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I've been doing a lot. I mean, it's funny that I've been on the East Coast now for almost 25 years, which is longer than I had ever lived anywhere else. So, people for the longest time called me Portland, but I've outlived Portland, like on the East Coast. So, I did the music thing and got into the art thing through the music thing, and then that led me to start a design company, which ended up becoming a new design company, which we do a lot of design, but mostly marketing and branding and hospitality stuff. So I would say maybe 5% of my work is still related to the music industry. But if things come along, like I can't pass it up because it's like, it's stuff that it keeps me grounded. It's stuff I love to do. So I have select people that still come to me, and I get to work in the music industry, which is pretty cool.
Cool. One of those being Josh Scogin, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, through Carl. I actually saw Carl today for lunch. But yeah, I've been working with Josh now for, I don't know, it's been a long time since we did the last 2 Chariot records on Good Fight. And I've been a Josh fanboy for as long as I can remember. So getting to work with him was pretty awesome. So now he's a friend as opposed to just someone I do work with.
It's really hard not to be a fan of his.
No,
it's infectious. His charisma, and I mean, Rhodey's a charismatic guy, but Josh makes Rhodey seem very dull.
I am dull.
And very plain. He's just a very boring fellow.
Yeah.
So you moved. I understand the whole. I've outlived the whole West Coast thing. When people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Portland, but I lived there for literally 3.5 years. I've lived in Detroit now for 20 something years. And before that, I lived in the Bay Area for 15 years. But I still say I'm from Portland because that's sort of where I came of age, I guess. It's like, where I turned from child to adult. But yeah, it's weird to think about like the phases of our life and how I can't believe I've lived here for 25 years. Weird.
Yeah, it's very strange for me to say that I'm, everyone was, how many times I've heard people say like, why'd you move to Jersey from Portland? That's stupid. It's like, not really. I mean, it's kind of it is a culture shock for sure. But when I first moved out here, but it just, geographically, it's like the perfect place to live. Like where I live in New Jersey is technically south, but we call it central. But I'm an hour and a half from New York and 35 minutes from Philadelphia. So if I wanted to see anything, I could go either way and get there. So it's perfect. And then, playing in a band, coming here was, you could drive 3 hours anywhere and be in a totally different place. Whereas in Portland, you drive 3 hours to Seattle or like 2 hours to Tacoma, or you drive 15 hours to San Francisco. So it's just like,
there's so much closer, and back then, like at the time, like when I was playing music in Portland, like, the scenes they were a little bit, they existed, but they were smaller. So going to Idaho or going to Boise was doable, but like it was kind of like there wasn't
a lot going on there at the time. Now I heard it's awesome to live in Boise, and there's a lot of stuff going on, which is great. But back then, way back when, there was just less opportunities to do shit. So when I got the opportunity, I just bounced.
Yeah. You were the first person that I knew that it was
Period.
like a thing where you could go. Yes, that was it. You were just the only person I've known up until I started this podcast with Rody. Like, and then I met Rody. But the first person I knew that it was like, oh, you could go from being like in a band in Portland and then go be in another different band in New Jersey. And like, that's just a thing that happens. Like as a high school kid, I was like, that's wild. Wait a minute. He's going to be like in a band that everybody knows and like it's a thing. What the hell?
And it was very, very spur of the moment. And it was almost tongue in cheek because they posted something about needing a guitar player because 2 of the guitar players quit. And I was like, I kind of knew Carl because I was doing a distro back in Portland. So I was buying records from Ferret. And so I kind of knew Carl, and I knew, and then I was also trying to get my band at the time signed to Ferret. Mm-hmm. So when that fell apart, I saw that they needed a guitar player. So I was like, hey, I'll come audition. And I didn't expect anything of it. I think I posted it I responded on like the Trustkill message board or something. Mm-hmm. And they're like, sure. So I flew out, auditioned, and I got the job. I guess I got the job. And then like a month later I moved, and it was a very, very quick thing. It was a quick, chaotic, very stressful thing that, ruffled a lot of feathers, rightly so, but it was the best. Yeah. It was the best thing I could have done.
Yeah. I think so too. That scene in Portland was awesome for like a kid like me that didn't have a lot of exposure to that kind of music and stuff. Like, you guys, I credit you and your brother, Mike, for like my discovery of all things hardcore metal, like all of that stuff. Like I went from being the kid who's like listening to Metallica and stuff like that to like going to see Earth Crisis in clubs in Portland. Like it was a huge shift for me musically. Like the first time I ever played a guitar through a stack, I'm pretty sure was your guitar through your stack in Matt Henderson's basement. Like it was so much bigger than anything that I had ever been around. Like the bands that I was playing with was like, you take your little practice amp with your friends to like the local pool and like play next to the pool for a bunch of kids that are swimming. Like playing shows and clubs and
that's like, a very strange
touring bands and all that
Fritzy.
stuff. It is, but those are the types of shows we were playing. Like,
I don't remember
that
kind of
like
show.
8th
At a
grade,
swimming pool? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, like
the acoustics have to be so strange in there.
It was outside.
No, it's outside.
Like,
okay,
it's like at the local swim club, and like they were like, "Yeah, just set up over here next to the pool," and we were just like with our little practice amps. I mean,
now, I gotta say, there's nothing wrong with a combo amp. Refuse played fucking Coachella with combo amps, dude. It looked cool as fuck too.
Teeny tiny,
dude. The smaller, the better.
But we didn't have a PA. It's not like we were miking amps and stuff. It was just us, and like it was quiet enough that our singer didn't need a mic. You know what I mean? Like you just sing.
But on the reverse of that, how ridiculous was it that we were practicing with full stacks,
right?
In someone's house.
So loud,
so stupid. Like, but awesome. It's funny because I'm like anytime I get together with the guys to play music, it's the same thing. Like we still play super loud, and the bass player that we're playing with now, or have played a few shows with, he's just like, "Bro, what are you guys doing? It's so stupid. Like, why are you playing so loud? This is dumb." But it's just how we grew up, and it's, I don't know. I think it was just like we just wanted to be as loud as humanly possible.
Yeah,
you know. But
it's
just dumb.
To me, it was just so fucking cool. Everything was so big. Like, you had a dedicated space. It wasn't somebody's bedroom that had like the drum kit in the corner and you're like sitting on the edge of somebody's bed because it's the only place you fit. Like, it was like an actual space that, like, in Matt's basement, that you could actually play in, and like people would come in, and it was just amazing to me. Really sort of changed my view of what music can be. So that was really cool. Before, I'm going to jump back into some of that early stuff, but before we do, we've had like John Malosh from the Full Blast and This Is a Standoff has been on the podcast. He used to work at Sheet Happens as a designer. Then we have HK, Matt Kidby, who plays drums now for Protest, played drums in Mandroid Echo Star, is also designer at Sheet Happens. We've had a whole bunch of people who are in Mike Ratty. We've had so many people who are from the music industry that are now doing design, doing like art and stuff like that professionally. And like, how does that happen? Like, where is that connection for you? I mean, like, one of our first guests, Todd, right? Todd the Rod from Propaganda was on here, and he does a ton of art. Like, what is that sort of thing? Brody says he's an artist. I've seen his coloring book. It's cool, but like, what is that? How does that happen?
My brother and I, when growing up, when we first started playing music together, and even before that, we were like DIY kids before we even knew what DIY was. Even though we were listening to Minor Threat and stuff at the time, like, we didn't really know, because we were built. I remember going to Kinko's. We lived at Kinko's. Like, yeah. I don't know. My kids unfortunately don't know what a Kinko's is, and like it sucks because we spent so much time there, and it's kind of my dad worked there actually for a while, so we were going there and just like screwing around while he worked there. But like we just wanted to make things, so we started making like our own T-shirts. Just like we'd take album covers. Or like albums, and then go and Xerox them, and then they had like a press, and they would just press the design, like the hot press, onto a shirt. So that's how we would make our band shirts, and then that taught us how to make flyers. So when we did start getting into bands and all the self promotion, we just like knew how to do flyers, but it was all just like hand drawn, cut and paste, like kind of collage style stuff. But that kind of got us into that. It wasn't until I met Aaron Edge, who played in Harkonnen and Himsa and all those bands, that like I saw someone that was doing it professionally, and I was like amazed. Like I was so envious of the things that he was doing. He was actually doing full CD layouts, and he also worked for like the Rocket, and like he did cool art, and it was all like, but it was all accessible. It was like watching him do stuff. I was like, holy shit! Like you're showing me that like I have no training, but I could figure this out. And like, he wasn't afraid to try things, even if it failed or whatever. But he was constantly making art, constantly. And it was so inspiring. So I was just like, well, that's what I want to do. I mean, I think that, and then from there, I just started teaching myself how to do web design. And from there, it like started getting more into like doing web stuff. And then when I moved I wasn't on a track to be an artist at all. Yeah. I was going to school to be a teacher. And then I got real fed up with doing that and dropped out of college, and then just floated around doing weird, odd jobs. Worked at a tile factory for a while, but this was all just like to pay the bills so I could play music.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I moved out east where I had the opportunity. Like it was just total luck. A guy didn't show up to our bass player worked at the college newspaper, and the one guy didn't show up, and he was like, "Hey, you know how Photoshop, Illustrator?" I was like, "Yeah, totally didn't." And I knew how to turn it on, but he's like, "Don't worry about it, I'll teach you." And he did. He taught me, and it was in the summertime, so the school wasn't in, and I just got a job. And I got a job. My first job was creative director at the newspaper, and like I barely knew what I was doing, but I quickly learned because I wanted to do it so bad. Yeah. And then from there, because I showed an interest, or I was like, what more can I do? And then I started doing stuff for Ferret, and then Carl just hired me. So it was just like, it was very quick. Like I moved, and within a month I had a full-time job. And then a year and a half later, I was the full-time creative director for Ferret. So it was like it was the most wild time ever of my life.
Cream rises right to the top.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How did you end up with working with Protest on the Fortress record? That's bananas.
Yeah, so I don't remember if you remember this, but there was a hot second when you guys were talking to Ferret.
Yeah.
And I remember being like championing you guys. I was like, you guys have to sign this band. Like, this band is fucking awesome. And I don't think I even met you. I think you came to the office and then or I don't remember. I remember you coming or being met like in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how it fell apart or what happened, but I just remember being like, dude, that band's awesome. And then I can't remember who asked me to do an album, but someone asked me, and I was like, I was doing albums a lot, like on the side from Ferret at that time. I had my other company, Sons of Nero, and I did a lot of album art. So when I got the opportunity to do that, I jumped on it immediately because, but I was never. I mean, honestly, like I was real green. Like I was really busy and doing stuff, and at the time I really loved that piece of art. But I'm so glad that we got to go back and like redo it, because I mean, it's just like at that time I was just layering on top of layering on top of layering textures. I was like, ugh. And now I look at that stuff and was like, I was like, what was I doing? It's terrible.
Yeah, that's I feel similar. It's actually, I feel like the same way about the music on it. You know what I mean? Like, as more time passes, I'm just going like, what the fuck? Like, we would have done this so differently now,
Yeah, it's funny because the guy that did the photography for that, I work with him now at my job, and that's his wife, and we've used her a couple times. And the other time, she was actually Mary Magdalene, and so it's like just such a random. Like, we've done so many things with her and him. It's funny, but yeah, I've always been a fan of that record.
It is two different people on the original cover and the anniversary cover.
Yeah, that's a different girl. The girl that was shot, someone that shot, I don't remember. I have to go back and look at the liner notes on who photographed the first time. But that girl, it's two totally different girls.
Because I met the first girl in like a really weird way. Like, she just came up and introduced herself at a show. I don't even remember where it was. And I was like, oh, hey, like, what's up? And she was like, I'm your album. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, it's me on the cover of your album. It's a picture of me. And at that point, like, I mean, credit to your art. Like, it's so awesome. I didn't even realize it was a fucking photograph. I thought it was hand drawn. Right?
Yeah, so that's funny. I'm glad that she remembered enough to come and say something, you know.
Yeah,
I'm glad, but I'm
cool.
glad she didn't like try to sue you like the Nirvana kid or something.
Yeah, well, fortunately, she doesn't appear naked on it.
So her, so it's weird that you know a person that has antlers. That's
Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't use them for a lot of things.
It's too niche, you know. It's like once you use it once, you can't use it again.
I guess so.
We actually have a song on the album that came 2 records after that, called Animal Bones. And the very beginning of it, I just described the cover of Fortress. Like the song is about much more than that, but ultimately it was like, hey, this was like the first time that like the artwork came together in a way that we really love. Because previous to that, like no one had really captured what we wanted. And so it's like the idea of the very start of that song is just like, finally things were sort of coming to fruition. And it starts with the image of Fortress, I think.
Like that, the world is so weirdly small, right? That like during COVID, I become friends with Rhodey and then start this podcast. And then through an interview with somebody else, find out that Matt, a kid I knew when I was in high school in Oregon, did the art for an album that I love that you made. Like, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It is weird, and it happens more often. I don't know if I just see it more often now, but like I feel like there's just so many weird connections that we as people get into, but it's, I don't know. I always took it for granted. I thought it was cool, but now I try not to take it for granted because I think it's like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, not to get like too hippie or anything, but it's like, I think it's the universe bringing everyone together in a cool way, but I don't know. I wish but I do wish I remember, truthfully, I wish I remember like doing the work on the original Fortress record, like why we did that. And like, like it was it's so long ago that it's hard for me to remember like I wish I had written it all down, like the thought process. I know that there's sketches somewhere, but I don't know. It's,
I don't even know. Like, I remember
Brody's
like
never involved in any of that stuff. So I'm sure that there was all somebody else, Luke.
It would have been Luke, 100%. Luke,
yeah, and Rhodey was just
from the band involved. It would have been Luke,
floating around the periphery, throwing eggs at whatever was going on.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about like that time period because we didn't end up going with Ferret, but like we really liked everyone we met with Ferret. And like we like the bands that they were signing or had at that time. Like Every Time I Die, they just signed like Boys Night Out, like cool stuff was happening there, and we really loved Ferret. Like we all got like Ferret t-shirts and we were like wearing them around our hometown. But there was an element in that deal that involved it was some major label, and they like at some point, like on 3rd record or something like that, they had rights to it. And that scared the living shit out of us. So we were just like, much as we want to fucking like do this with Ferret, we're too scared of big fucking corporate industry.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I do know what you're talking about. There was like a lot of things going on around that time where there was like trying, those major labels, they wanted to like capitalize on it somehow, So, but it was a fun time. We did get to work with a lot of really cool bands at that time.
I was looking through a bunch of the stuff. You did a bunch of stuff for Misery Signals and like a whole bunch of bands that like are bands that I'm a big fan of, and I think Protest fans are big fans of too. So it's just a very a neat thing to discover that somebody is doing something and has a history with all these cool bands. What's your take on Mr. Grammy award winning Ryan Lewis winning a bunch of Grammys with Doja Cat?
Dude, you're digging deep in the vault now.
Yeah.
I am so happy for him. He is easily one of the most talented musicians I've ever met.
Yeah.
It was crazy seeing him at like 13 years old being able to do what he was doing. You know, like, and honestly, I've always liked to be around people like that were like way better than me at stuff, because it was a way for me to learn from it. You know, it just was weird that I was, you know, at the time, like he was 5 years younger than me or 6 years younger than me, and he was just a baby, and he was just like shredding guitar and bass. You know, it's just like, how did you learn how to do this? So, you know, and I'm just glad that he kept with music and went on that path, because I didn't know what any of those guys were going to do, you know, and they all went in such different directions. So I'm just glad to see that, you know, he stuck it out, and instead of making music, he like started producing, and like, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think from the first time, like I remember like playing with him in his little practice room. He was playing drums and I was playing bass, and we were playing like covers of like off of Throwing Copper and stuff. I mean, just like 90s alt rock stuff together, and like and just realizing like, oh, this kid's on a different level from anything that any of us that are like trying to play in bands and stuff are doing. And he is like the least surprising person to end up like, oh, you played on the Tonight Show. Oh, you won a grit. Like, not surprised at all. Like, because that kid just, there's the way his brain is turned like 90 degrees one way, different than everybody else around music. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it was very inspiring to watch that. I mean, I didn't get to see it for very long because, I mean, I only played music with those guys for a couple years, even though it felt like a lot longer. It was a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, but I have very, very fond memories of that time. And I know it was hard. There were some hard moments, but those guys, like, I loved playing music with those guys and hanging out with those guys, even though they were way younger than me and I felt like an old man sometimes. They were such cool kids and like just so good at playing music. I have a funny story about that. When I first moved to Jersey, I think my second show playing with Nora was Hellfest in Syracuse. It was like the second or third Hellfest that they did. And it was big. It was the biggest show at the time, biggest like punk or hardcore show I ever been to. Like, you know, I saw Melvin's, you know, at play stadium or, you know, like big shows, but this was like a hardcore show and it was massive. And the guys, the Ryan and Matt and the backside guys came out to play or just to come out and see the show. And I lived in the practice room in the basement, like at that time, because I had only lived there for maybe 3 weeks or a month or so, and then maybe a little longer. But I lived in the basement, and those guys stayed with me. And we were one day right before we went to go play Hellfest. We were just down in the practice room. And we just picked up the instruments and started playing Backside Disaster songs. And everyone at the time, it was our drummer's house, and he always just had a bunch of people just floating in and out of that house. And little, like one after the other, people just started coming downstairs while we were playing these songs. And I'll never forget, like by the time we were done playing like 3 or 4 songs, there was like, the room was crowded. And I just remember getting quiet. And then one guy goes, "Why the fuck did you quit that band to play in Nora?" I was like, oh man, yeah. That's funny because those kids were just so good
Yeah.
at what they did, and it was like, that was a moment for sure.
That's so cool. Before Backside Disaster, we'll talk a little bit more about Backside Disaster in a minute, but you were in a band in Portland called National Guard.
Yeah. That's so ridiculous.
The first two bands in that scene that I had ever heard of, where it was National Guard and Berserk.
Yeah.
Were like the two bands, and like probably the two biggest bands in the scene, like at that time in Portland. And like, how did you go from like National Guard to like these like suburban like Lake Oswego kids playing with those guys? Like, that, did you just meet at shows? And
I don't remember how we met. But it had to have been those kids. No, they played in a band. They were in another band called like Heckle or something, or they played in another band.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were breaking away from, I'll tell you, okay, so National Guard, we did our thing. And again, this is like a really quick period of time that at the time felt like an eternity.
Right, yeah.
We did so much shit in like 2 years.
Yeah.
And my brother and I always like reminisce about it. I was like, dude, I was like, how do we do all this stuff? It's like, we just crammed everything we possibly could in this like short amount of time. But we did we played locally, and then we did a full US tour, which was bonkers to think that we actually pulled that off. I don't even know how we did it. I mean, a lot of shows got canceled, but we did. We made the full loop. And when we got to Long Island, at the time we were still very much punk kids, raised on, just a steady diet of like Discord records, Fat Records, and Maximum Rock and Roll. We read that cover to cover every time it came out. Like, we were very much punk kids.
Yeah.
And in Portland at the time, you either were like they dubbed us like skate punk. This was before like Avril Lavigne skate punk stuff, but like the only other punk at that time in Portland was crust punk, Defiance.
Yeah.
And Defiance was massive, and they were, and like for what they did, and like, but we were never. I liked Defiance, but I couldn't get into that whole thing. Like,
right, yeah.
that whole thing was just weird to me, and it still is. Like, that whole Crush scene is their music is dope, but like, I don't know, couldn't get into it.
It's a whole lifestyle, man, and I don't think it's changed at all.
At all. Not at all.
Not at all. And like, you gotta give them credit, because anyone that's putting that much into that is
that much shit on their body.
It was wild. I remember, this is weird about Lake Oswego you mentioned.
Yeah.
I remember there was like this, before Portland became what it is now, like with like the homeless and the drug use and whatnot. There was always like street kids downtown Portland begging for money. And, but it wasn't a dangerous thing. And it wasn't like, it wasn't a like these kids are addicted to heroin kind of thing. They were just like street urchin kids that were crust punks.
Yeah.
I remember one time meeting someone that worked in a youth shelter, and them telling me that like a good percentage of those kids all were from Lake Oswego families or upper like the upper class families that just wanted to be dirty for a little while. I was like, you little fuckers. But I don't know where I was going on this tangent. Oh, so so we did the full US tour, and when we got to the East Coast, we played a show in Long Island, and it was with a band called Silent Majority, and I think 25 to Life played, or another band that Rick to Life was a part of. But Rick to Life had his distro, and I had a distro back home. It was like 2 boxes.
Yeah.
This guy had like 9 tables in the whole room, the PWAC. And I was like, dude, I give up because this is wild. Like, he had a full record store that he brought to the show with him. And I remember just like looking through the stuff and like not knowing many of the hardcore bands, because in Portland, like, we knew hardcore, like we knew Gorilla Biscuits and stuff like that, but we didn't know them as hardcore bands. We just knew them as punk bands. And someone told me, is like, you like Propaganda a lot. It's like, you should listen to Refused. And I was like, okay. So Rick to Life had Refused, so I bought their tape and I put it on in the van and I listened to it the entire way home. And as soon as I got home, I was like, I don't want to play punk anymore. I want to play this. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And dude, songs of Fan the Flames. That still to this day is like the one. There is a couple albums that like changed my life. That one is top of the list, 100%.
So fucking cool. Like I credit you and your brother for a couple of things. One, the first time I played a guitar through a loud ass amp. Two, introducing me to stuff like, a lot of the East Coast hardcore stuff, straight edge hardcore stuff that you guys were listening to, Snapcase and fucking Earth Crisis and shit like that, Refused. And then also my love for the Spice Girls came from you guys.
That's definitely my brother.
Yeah. That was wild. I have this ongoing memory of his love of Ricky Lake.
Oh yeah.
That he just loved Ricky Lake so much.
Yeah, still does.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
What is Ricky Lake doing now?
I think she's still like, I think she's around doing stuff. I don't know. I thought she was like still doing talk show stuff or maybe podcast stuff. I don't know. But my brother was obsessed with Ricky Lake. Big time.
I mean, that show ruled, man. Like, I don't know, coming home after school, putting on Ricky Lake, just being like, woo!
Yeah, he had an autographed picture, from her that someone got for him, and like is like, to Mikey, love Ricky Lake. He had hanging on the wall. I'm sure he still has it, but like, yeah, he loved Ricky Lake. I'll never forgive him for taking us to that stupid Spice Girl movie, though. That was bad.
So I went to that Spice Girls movie. Me and a buddy. We were the only 2 people in the theater. It was just me and another dude in high school at the Spice Girls movie in the theater by ourselves, watching the Spice World movie. It was amazing.
Yeah, I want to go back and watch it because it's got to be the most ridiculous thing ever.
Terrible. It's got to be terrible. But it was like that whole thing, like it was the idea that like you can play and be into heavy music and stuff, but you can also like be into something like so poppy like the Spice Girls and appreciate the positivity and all that stuff. Like, it opened my eyes to being able to like, you can do more than one thing. You can enjoy more than one thing. And that sort of that notion that like, there's no guilty pleasures. If you like something, you like it. It's okay.
There's a lot of things that like, I had friends growing up where if I played it, it was always just like, some derogatory term or, it's like, so I remember buying Sunny Day Real Estate's record at the time and having to listen to it quietly because those guys would just relentlessly torment me. Like, you're not listening to punk. Like, what are you doing? I was still very much like raised on the grunge scene in Portland scene. Oh, yeah. So like that's what I still go back to that now, even though like there's a soft spot in my heart for Refused and there will always be that. Like, I always like, if I had the choice to listen to Nirvana or Refused, well, I don't know about that anymore. I'm kind of burned out on Nirvana, but like any of that old punk Portland like grunge stuff, I still choose that over anything. But I also credit the young backside kids for what you just said about like the guilty pleasures or just being able to like appreciate not only hardcore or not only metal or not only punk or whatever, because I mean, Ryan at the time was listening to a lot of what's his name? Hallelujah, dude. Jeff Buckley. And I remember being like, what is this? Like, this is cool. Like I didn't know you could listen to this. And then later on, them introduced me to like Elbow and even got me into like Silverchair and all these like weird bands. Like I remember they just like, okay, it's okay to have a soft side now. It's cool.
Yeah. I just went to see the Get Up Kids 25th anniversary of Something to Write Home About show in Detroit, and like it was like I just cried basically the whole show. Like Matt Pryor didn't have to sing at all. Like the crowd just sang the whole show for him, and I just cried the whole time. Like it was so amazing to me, and like that comes from that group of kids.
Yeah.
Like those guys are the guys that got me into the Get Up Kids and bands like that, as they sort of started morphing into the thing that they did after Backside Disaster. You mentioned earlier Aaron Edge had a huge impact on you, and I'm pretty sure Aaron Edge replaced you in Backside Disaster?
No. He replaced Andy.
Oh,
well, sort of. Andy left, and then Ryan went to guitar, and then Aaron played bass. But he only played maybe one or two shows. Like he played the last show. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I found I don't know how I'm going to do this, but like there is definitely like a little corner of the internet out there that's still very much into reminiscing about that Portland scene back then and like talking about the bands that were around back then and stuff. And I found some like an old blog that had pictures, like this guy's reminiscing about all these shows, and there's a picture of like it's you and Mike and Ryan and Andy on stage, shot from like behind the drum kit. And
it might have been Justin. Do you know? Were you ever friends with Justin from the Dead Unknown?
I don't think
Sittner?
So. Nah, I don't think so. If I knew him, I don't know him. You know, it's out of my memory.
He's still a Portland guy. We talk every once in a while, but he was really good about documenting that stuff. He had a blog for a while. Then posted all the backside stuff, all the somehow he has like all the demos, like he has like the DAT tapes and stuff, which is like how the hell do you have that stuff?
Yeah, I think I have like somewhere in a box. I have like one of the cassettes, one like a copy of one of the demos that was like tape to tape copy. I have, I think, a copy of the CD, the EP. On CD somewhere. But like, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that still like talk about those shows and talk about that scene and really love it and miss it. And, you know, it's very cool. Like to see the stuff that like was, you know, shaped me as a kid, that people like it meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, it meant a lot to me too. Like it really did. Like it was a short-lived little thing, but my brother and I still reminisce about it fondly. And like I unfortunately, and I don't know if this is just because I'm old, but I kind of, when I moved, my brain got fractured on like coasts. Like, so I have memories that they blur the lines of like, where did they happen? Did they happen on the West Coast? They happen on the East Coast? And so I need him to like, he's got a memory, like his memory is sharp as a tack. So I always have to call and like have him like remind me on places and like, or he'll tell me like, yeah, we were there. I was like, I have no recollection of that. That's just completely gone out of my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim was working on a project. Tim from Protest was working on a history project of like all the shows. Like, let's figure out all the shows we played, when and where. And let's like pull together all the articles and photographs that are floating around, video and all this stuff, and try to like catalog everything. I was working with him on that, and there's so much. I imagine that, like, especially in a pre-digital time, like there's got to be boxes of stuff places, and then there's got to be stuff that is just lost to time, you know.
How many shows did you guys come up with? Do you remember?
We only made it through like 2007 or 8, and it was in the hundreds. Mid hundreds by then.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I'd rather just forget it all.
They were all at the dungeon. They were all at the dungeon in Oshawa. That's all it was.
Oh yeah,
that one
fuck,
venue.
Who knows how many fucking shows there were there? But I've done a little research. Ricky Lake has a podcast. Started 2 years ago. It seems to be running strong. It's called Raised by Ricky. She's had some excessive hair loss, but she's healing. She was on Dancing with the Stars and The Masked Singer.
Oh.
She's been fucking busy, dude.
She did I remember when I first had kids, she had like a documentary about like the importance of childbirth, or like I don't remember, like not doing, like trying to do natural births. I think I remember watching it with my wife at the time, or like right when we were having kids. But I remember that. But yeah, she's
Ricky Lake just
fucking
popped
Ricky
up
Lake.
Dude, she's pretty hot. Still, like,
yeah.
Obviously, she was very good looking back in the day, but she's still looking great.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it, man.
She was recently a special guest on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
I'm shocked that thing's still going on.
Right?
Sorry, that was 4 years ago.
Okay.
But it's like, I didn't realize that improvisational comedy was her big thing, but hell yeah, dude.
All right. So you were, and the way I met you and the way I know you is from a band you were in called Backside Disaster in Portland. And obviously Backside Disaster, the name of the band is named after a skateboard trick, the Backside Disaster. So I have a game that's about skateboard tricks and skateboarding. And we're going to see how much you know about skateboarding.
Oh, geez.
Since
Okay.
you're in a band named after skateboard trick.
So that's a very unfortunate name. Like,
it definitely sounds like you're talking about shit in your pants.
Yeah,
it does. And like, it's one of those things where at the time I never associated it with that. It was like, it's kind of like working at Ferret Records. Like I never Ferret that word transcended it being an animal to me. Really? It was just a thing. But going now that like I tell people that unless I'm telling someone that like knows what skateboarding is, like they're like, what the hell? That's a terrible name for a band. I was like, yeah, it's fucking terrible, dude. Terrible.
Like it sounds like a super archaic way of referring to your ass.
Yeah.
Just being like, oh, my backside. I've had a little disaster with my backside.
It's so terrible.
First question, and it's multiple choice.
All right.
So to make it easier, and you and Rhodey can both play. Rhodey, famously a huge skateboarder.
No, I know nothing about skateboarding.
Big time skateboarder.
I was always too scared to do it.
The Ollie is named after what? A dude named Alan. B, the name of the dog the first guy ollied over. The phrase "Ollie Ollie Oxenfree," or Oliver Hardy of Laurel and Hardy. Why is the Ollie called the Ollie?
I have no idea.
And none of those really seemed like obvious and good reasons.
Yeah, and I can't see a skateboard kid saying "Ollie Ollie Oxenfree." That doesn't seem. But I don't know. And it's definitely not the dog jumping over the dog, because they weren't ollieing over dogs. But maybe they were. I don't know. I'd say the first one.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a dude named Alan.
Alan. All right.
Okay.
I don't know how you get Ollie from Alan, but that's it. Neil Blender named many skate tricks. Which one of these is not a real skate trick that Neil Blender named? The lean air, the method air, the blender grind, or the no comply?
It's the blender grind. But the cool thing about that, which I didn't know this until recently, the lean air, like I knew what a lean air was, but I didn't realize that he named that trick because it's just kneel backwards.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until just recently. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is the blender grind.
That was another guy that got me like that was like doing art where I was like, he just does art and like that's badass. He just does it. And like I always admire that too. That dude was awesome.
All right, so this one is about art and graphics on skateboards. The first company to put graphics on the bottom of a skate deck was A, Santa Cruz, B, Powell Peralta, C, Sims, or D, Roller Derby?
I don't know. You want to take a guess?
Roller derby sounds so stupid, and the way he said it was like, this is goofy shit, so I'm going to guess that it's that.
I'm going to say Sims.
It was Roller Derby.
Yes!
Roller Derby was the first company to like mass manufacture skateboards and put their design logo on the bottom of the board.
Roller Derby. Now I got to look that
Roller
up.
Derby skateboards. Okay, last question. Which of the following diagnosis codes, if you know anything about medicine, if you want to get your insurance claim paid, you have to have a valid diagnosis code on your claim that goes to the insurance company. When you go to the doctor when you're sick, right? And they go, oh, you have the flu. They put in a little code that indicates you have the flu, and that's how they make sure you get paid.
I'm getting very worried about how much explanation this fucking trivia question is taking.
There are many diagnosis codes in the system that they released in the last 5 years that have to do with skateboards, like specifically. So which of these is not a real code that can go on a medical claim and get paid for by an insurance company? Is it pedestrian on skateboard injured in collision with stationary object?
Okay.
Pedestrian.
Wait, that's something that someone has to type in?
Yeah, essentially. There's a code for it. It's like V900.3.
Okay, all right.
The second one is pedestrian on skateboard injured in collision with bird. C, pedestrian on skateboard injured in collision with animal being ridden.
What?
Wait.
Like a horse?
Someone riding a horse?
Yes. Or D, pedestrian on skateboard injured in collision with train.
Oh, no.
3 of those are real. 1 of them is not real.
So the options are skateboarder hits an object, like fucking runs into a wall.
Yep.
Skateboarder hits a bird.
Yep.
Skateboarder hits someone on a fucking animal.
Yep.
Or a train.
Yeah.
It seems to me like it would be the riding an animal, but it's just so
I'm going to say,
ridiculous.
yeah, that's so ridiculous. I'm going to think that it's probably not,
Real?
who is on that list.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go bird.
Steve?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the like one where you're riding the animal, but I don't have any faith in it.
It's bird.
Oh,
It's
it's
bird.
bird.
Yeah. Bird is the fake one. The other 3 are true. So
That
if you're
fucking-
skateboarding along and get run over by a train,
Like, how many people have hit someone like on horseback on a
I
skateboard?
don't know.
Or like the thing is, it has to be even vaguer than that. Otherwise, they would say on horseback.
No, yeah, it's animal being ridden or vehicle pulled by an animal.
Okay, well that's different. A vehicle being pulled by an animal.
So
'cause,
that's like you ran
Do people
into a
just-
horse-drawn buggy. but it's both. It's animal being ridden, or so it's either you ran into a guy who was riding a horse. And
Why don't they just say horse though? Like, what's fucking happening here that they're not saying horse?
Because there's a lot of dudes in the big cities where skateboarders are skating that are riding around on llamas. I mean,
camels,
donkeys or something. Like, fuck.
Cheese, I have to send you my gift.
I gotta send you mine as well. Mine sucks.
Mine sucks also, but that's the whole point, right?
Mine particularly sucks.
Okay.
It's nice that you're sending gifts to each other, though.
Sometimes they're not very friendly to each other.
No, they're pretty mean.
Sometimes they're just mean things we've done for one another. Let me see. Like, this song is called Fritzy Puts It in His Holes.
What?
Yeah.
That's what you sent me? You wrote
it's
a song about
called
me?
Fritzy Puts It in His Holes. Now, I will say that does sound crude, but it is an instrumental song. And I literally I was going to write a song about you picking your nose and have it kind of seem like you were putting something in your bum, but it was about you putting
How did you know that's what
nose.
I do with my boogers?
Yeah.
How else are they going to get in the toilet?
I don't know.
If I don't put them in my bum first.
But yeah, so it's just like a really shitty fucking thing I threw together this afternoon.
Here we go. Oh, volume.
Little rock riff. I don't know what we're doing.
I love it.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty great. I like.
At some point, I was going to stop.
At the beginning of the intro, there's like a little dissonance. Like,
yeah, the bass was out of tune.
It had that like, when they do like rock songs for like TV, like back, like it sounds like it could have been a montage for America's Funniest Home Video, like a rock song.
Like someone was like, write me a rock song. And then someone who didn't ever hear rock and roll wrote a rock song.
Yeah.
All right, Fritzy, what the hell am I looking at here? Oh, I know what this is.
So there's an inspiration behind this, which is, where's my photos?
So one of the gifts that was given back in the day was this thing that I made called Spook 'em Fritz, which was Fritzy as a ghost. And he's made a Halloween costume of it, and I ended up actually getting it tattooed on my body as another gift. So sometimes the gifts are very fucking elaborate.
Yeah. Sometimes
it's just a shitty little 15-second clip of something.
So when we were at the Hockey Hall of Fame, there was a jersey, and I thought I took a picture of it. But maybe it's only on video.
Okay.
No, that's not it.
I take it was a Leafs jersey.
Yeah, no, it's a Belvedere Sports Chimos. Can I pause this? So I don't know how.
You don't know how to pause videos on the iPhone?
No, I'm just gonna. Can you see this little guy? It's like a little hairy dude, and he's got skates on.
He kind of looks like that Hanna-Barbera caveman, Captain Caveman.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, I should make a Spook 'em Fritz guy that's a hockey guy. And so I made a Spook 'em Fritz with hockey skates and a Leafs jersey on.
Hell yeah. Now, so this is supposed to kind of be like the mascot of the team?
Yeah. Isn't that what a maple leaf is? It's a ghost wearing a Leafs jersey?
That's right.
It's the ghost of what? Who's that guy that makes it so the Leafs can't win the Stanley Cup?
Oh, are you talking about Harold Ballard?
Yeah. That's who it is.
Or are you talking about Bill Barreco?
No, that's who I'm talking about. Bill Barreco.
No.
Like, didn't he disappear in a plane crash?
No, he went out in his boat and he disappeared.
Oh, he
And
disappeared.
then they found his body the next time they won the Stanley Cup.
And
Like
they haven't won it since because
and
he's
they have-
haunting them. He's like, look, I was trying to get away. You shouldn't have found me. Now I'm haunting your team for the rest of time. Good luck winning a Stanley Cup for the next 50 years.
And they haven't. Yeah.
So
Thanks
that's
for
it.
that. That's really mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, let me tell you, the longer the Stanley Cup drought goes for the Leafs, the happier I get. Not
believe
because I don't like the Leafs, but just because I like ever so slightly every season a little bit more of you dies.
That's right.
And that brings me so much joy.
Here's the thing. I don't have any expectations of a Stanley Cup.
But you do, because I know, because you care so much.
Yeah, I care, but I
much.
don't ever believe they're actually going to do it.
So I admittedly know nothing about hockey.
That's okay.
Have they ever won the cup?
They've won it many, many times.
Okay.
Well, the last time they won it, there was like 16th in the league.
Yeah. They won it a lot. They won it like
Okay.
there was a span where they won it like every year for like 7 years or something. But
so
then
if they win it, you're still gonna love them. Like it's not one of those like, they won it, so I'm moving on now kind of thing.
No,
he-
when they win it, I'll burn my house down and probably kill myself. But I will still love them regardless.
Now, I have a friend that's a big Eagles fan, and he's like, when they did win the Super Bowl, like, he's like, yeah, I'm over it now. It's like, I'll watch it every
Really?
once in a while. But it's like, yeah, they won, so
He
all
got-
good.
all done. He's done.
Yeah, move on.
That's awesome.
I
I
mean,
wish
that's
I
great.
had that level of like I could just move on from it. But I don't.
That's kind of like you playing a video game. You get to the end, you beat it. You want to play it again?
Not right
I don't
away, no.
Not right away, no.
No. I'll come back to it in a few years though.
Yeah, maybe.
You have to pick who wins that gift, Matt.
Dude, that's tough because they're made. Both of them are crafted with like sheer love and like thought. I'm gonna have to go with the rock riff though, man. I mean,
Everybody loves Rhodey.
I love
fine.
that. I mean,
It's fine.
it has like, I don't know, 90210 vibes to it. So,
It
Yeah.
did, didn't
It's
it?
like a fucking unison band.
So that's it. That's gonna wrap it up.
Not too easy. Thank you
Matt.
very much for doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks for having
so
me.
much for coming on. It's been awesome to see you and talk to you for the first time and since literally 1998, probably 99.
yeah, 99 probably. I moved, it's 2000 when I moved out here. And
Yeah, I moved out here in 98, the end of 1998. So that would, yeah. Unbelievable. So all that's left is for you to tell everybody who you are. If you want to plug anything, feel free to plug things away. And then our sign off, which is to tell our audience to eat shit and go fuck themselves.
oh, geez, so aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm Matt. Hey, I played in a band called Nora. I own a design company co-own a design company called Four Fathers, and check it out, fourfathersgroup.com. I guess that's it. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
That's good.
Eat shit
Oh,
and die.
Yeah, I love it.
Hell yeah.
taking a picture from your.
Is he she?